every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you.
When I was 3, my family moved to Carmel, California. Our mother was casting astrological charts on the side for extra money. She became very good friends with a high Wiccan priestess, who was astonished at how accurate her readings were. So she tried everything to get Mum to join. It kind of intrigued Mum, but she graciously declined because she was on a different path. This high priestess had so much admiration and faith in my mother that she gave her a very old book of spells, a grimoire. Mum said that you couldn't just go out and buy this book. It was only in archives in England, and an endorsement was required to receive it. The front of this book had white spells and positive incantations, but the back of the book had dark spells, summoning dark forces to do your bidding. She also gave her an actual cat's eye ring and a bat's heart that my sister Charity wore on a chain around her neck. Weird. Mum later moved us to Pacific Grove. She found a house through a friend of a friend, and it was a deal she just could not refuse. It was a 3-level house with an attic, and the price was perfect. Nothing down, just start paying the mortgage, and the house was hers. Mum was so excited. This was the first house that she had ever owned, so she didn't even question why it was so cheap or why such a great deal. She just marked it off as being a blessing. It was a tall split-level house with a bedroom for Mum on the bottom floor, with the kitchen and living room. And above that were 2 bedrooms, one for my brother, and the other one was for my eldest sister Linda, my sister Melanie and myself. And then there was the attic where my other 2 sisters, Charity and Rachel, stayed. I have no memory of these events, so after separately interviewing 3 of my siblings and what I was told by my mother and eldest sister before they passed, this is what they recalled. Things were all right for the first few weeks, but then everyone in the house started experiencing signs of a poltergeist. Things being thrown and terrifying visits in their bedrooms. My brother had the bedroom with the door to the attic in it. He said that he didn't even know why, but the attic was always 60 degrees, even that hot summer. He said that one night the family cat was sleeping on his bed, and he was about to fall asleep when the cat jumped up and arched its back and hissed. He looked in the direction the cat was looking, and down the steps from the top was a dark floating blob. He said that he ran downstairs and it followed him. Our mother loved hanging pictures on staircases and in halls, and he said that this thing moved swiftly down the staircase, so much so the pictures flew off the walls and crashed to the floor. He then ran downstairs to our mother's room, where I was sleeping with her, and woke her up. She told him to see himself in white light and to say the universal word for God, which is Om. He said that he laid on the floor next to Mum's bed and didn't sleep a wink that night. He told me that he was sitting in the living room and a cat figurine jumped off the mantel and hit him hard in the head, and things were being tossed all the time. Everyone thought that there was something off with our sister Charity, who stayed in the attic with Rachel. Charity started isolating herself from everyone and wanted to be alone with her many mice. She would leave the house and talk to the trees, and she felt like the leaves were answering her. When walking to school, she never wanted to make that long walk on the country road with her siblings, but more preferred to walk alone. She told me that a lot of the time in the house, it was as if her memories were shrouded by fog, like she was there but wasn't at the same time. Charity said that she wished I hadn't asked her because she had forgotten things about that house. She said that it might have been possible at times that something was near her, wanting her to be alone. She was only 12. Our mother sold wigs at the time. It went quite well into the 60s. She would hold wig parties at the house, and this was the time Charity would feel the closest to our mother. Charity would style the wigs for her, and when they were sold, she was so proud It was their thing together. Well, at one of these parties, Charity was upstairs in the attic with her mice. She took very good care of them. She took one out and set him on the table, and she turned around to get something out of the cage, when, only a moment later, she heard screams coming from the living room 2 flights down. She said that Mum was mad and screaming for her to come down, and when she did, there was her mouse, the one that was upstairs. She knew there wasn't enough time for him to get down 2 flights. He was right in front of her. Later, she had one of her mice and her babies in a secure, locked cage, with no possible way in or out. And a wild mouse got in and killed the baby mice and the mother. She loved them so much. She knew it was whatever was in the house doing this. She said that she too saw pictures fly off the walls, one even smashing on her head. She wanted to make it go away, so she said that she got our mother's book, the one with the spells. But after trying to find something that would rid us of this thing, she said that it was too confusing, so she put it back. Charity said that she was getting more irritated with the family and sharing a room with Rachel, and she wanted to have space of her own, so she went downstairs to the unfinished part of the basement and put her bed between the walls with her mice. She told me that she didn't last too long down there because she saw things that frightened her. She went on to describe that they were shadows, light-colored shadows, taunting her, so she ran upstairs and slept on the couch. All of these events, plus some of her own, got our mother to get a priest to come and exorcise the house. He was in there for a while as my family stayed outside, but when he came out, he looked pale and told our mother to move immediately. He said that it's not going to leave and that she should sell the house. I stayed outside with my sister, but when they went into the house to grab our things, they said that it was right out of a movie. Things were broken and tossed, and as we were going down the hall, pictures were flying off the wall at us. We took only our clothes and went to a motel. We soon moved into an apartment and sent for our things. My mother found out that originally the house belonged to a church and 2 priests lived and had their offices there. But they were both found dead in the attic with their throats slashed. There were demonic drawings on the walls in the priest's blood, and the killings were blamed on a cult. Mum said that the place was sold 5 times in 2 years before we got it. My mother was a single parent with 6 very well-behaved children, 5 girls and 1 boy, and my name is Brandy. I was the youngest and very small for my age. We were all opened up to the paranormal at an early age. This took place in Hollywood, California, in the late 60s. Mum knew her kids were all different, and she was very supportive. She would just tell us not to go around telling people because they would think our family was crazy. Looking back at life with my mother, I kind of tend to agree on so many levels. Something she always said stuck with me. People don't like what they can't understand. At the time, we were renting a downstairs duplex on Alexandria Street in Hollywood, California, across the street from this mean old lady. She lived in the back of this house with her windows blacked out, and she would scream at the kids walking or riding their bikes by. She even popped out balls if they ever landed in her driveway, and then she would laugh. I tried to be her friend because I loved everybody, but she had an evil soul. One day, our mother sat us down and told us that the owner was getting a divorce, so she and her kids wanted to move back to our place, so we had to move. Mum knew that it was going to be hard financially to come up with the money for the move, but she asked us to have faith in her, so we did. Mum worked 3 jobs and worked mostly day hours, so the only time we could all go looking at rentals was at night. All 6 of us would pile into this big, yellow, wood panel station wagon with a suicide seat in the back, and off we would go. The adventure began into the night. Most of the time, some of the doors to the rentals were unlocked. It was the 60s. All of us were armed with flashlights, but we had to be very quiet. The scariest times for me was when the doors were locked, so me being the smallest, my brother would help me into an open window in the dark so I could run to the door and open it for them. Now that I'm writing this, I believe that was breaking and entering. My brother and I were very sensitive, so if there was a house that made any one of us uncomfortable, Mama would scratch it off her list and move on. It was hard to find a house that fit all of us, especially anything my mother could afford. One day I came home from school and was surprised to see all of our stuff was being moved to the house directly across the street, where a mean old lady lived in the back. I finally found my mother and asked her what was going on. She told me that she got a really good deal she couldn't pass up. Just stay away from that old lady, she told me. It was an old 2-story house with wood floors and a big porch that wrapped to the side, 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms. It used to be 4 bedrooms, but a small portion in the back was divided to accommodate for another renter, that old lady. I must add that I was young and still very small for my age. That house was much bigger than the duplex across the street. Boxes were everywhere, and there was so much commotion downstairs. My mother was understandably distracted. I asked her why she didn't wait and let me check the house for anything bad first. Not wanting to make me feel dismissed, she took both of my hands and told me that there wasn't any time. It was a good deal, and I had to take it, and that she also didn't have to use a moving truck. She told me to check it out now and report back to her if anything was wrong. Feeling very important, I went off to investigate. I went into the kitchen, big. I went into the dining room, fancy. And then I started up the stairs. Mum mentioned that there was a bedroom big enough for all of my sisters, a place for all my toys in the hall, and a room for my brother. So I was excited to see this. The staircase was enclosed with a door at the bottom. You went up 4 steps to a landing where it turned to the right, then proceeded up from there. I got up to the top step when something got me. It felt like 3 cold hands, quickly one after the other, grabbed around my throat with such force. I tried to scream, but the grip was getting tighter. I thought my vocal cords were being crushed. They started forcing me backward, with my back arched, and I felt like I was going to fall, but they just held me there for what seemed like forever in my mind. My toes teetering on the edge of the top step. I couldn't move. It felt like surges of electricity throughout my body. Then they started guiding me backwards, down the steps, fearing at any moment I was going to be thrown. I saw little spurts of my own breath coming from my nose as they were guiding me back down the stairs. I could feel only the edge of the steps graze the tips of my toes while I was trying to grip my foot on each step as I was being forced down the stairs. They led me to the landing and pressed my back against the wall. It felt like 1,000 weights were pressing against my chest, still hardly touching the floor. I was starting to pass out when I heard a voice in my head say to me, "You are strong. You have faith." In my mind, I saw a white glowing light all around me, and I said the only word that came to my mind, Om, which is the universal sound of God. They then lessened their grip ever so slightly, but it was enough for me to drop to the floor and run down to my mother. "Please, Mum, please, we can't live here, please." I told her what happened, but she said it was too late. We had no money and nowhere else to go. It wasn't long before everyone else in the family had their own experiences. We all hated that house, but we had to endure it until we could afford to move again. My brother liked to tinker, take things apart and see how they worked, if you will. He took the time to sometimes share that part of his life with me. I'd like to think that's where I got my inventor's mind and my ability to fix almost anything. He set up a workshop downstairs in the basement. I sometimes found some of my electronic toys being dissected so he could see how the mechanics worked. Then he would put them all back together on that workbench. One day I was looking for one of my toys, a little furry barking dog that walked, and I suspected that I knew where to look, but I was too scared to go down into that brick-walled basement alone. so I took my trusted cat, Frischka. He will protect me, I thought. I started down the stairs with my cat in my arms. I got almost to the bottom step when the lights went out and the door to the house slammed shut. Scared to death, I felt for the railing and started to run back up when I saw something. The house was on 3-foot stilts from the ground, so normally you could see the moonlight from under the house through the vents to the outside. Something moving was blocking the light out and quickly coming towards me. It almost looked like a billowing black smoke from the back of the house. Just then, my loving cat Frischka hissed and clawed me for the very first time to get away. He jumped from my arms and escaped through one of the grates on the other side. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could, with my heart pounding out of my chest. I grabbed the door handle and jiggled it back and forth, thinking it was stuck. I heard a loud, long exhale behind me, followed by the smell of rotten eggs. The door finally opened and I slammed and locked it behind me. When I told my brother, he said that he never felt good down there, and he kept the door always locked after that. My family was very involved in the temple. We cleaned it every Saturday and helped with all the events and variety shows. Funny thing was that our family was so big, it felt like we were the variety show. One such day, they were all at the temple doing something. I don't remember what. I had just arrived home from school, and someone, I think one of my sisters, was supposed to be there to greet me. Now, this event happened in the hall. As you walk through the dining room into the hall, if you turn right, on the left, there is a boarded up wall to the Ten's dwelling behind us. That evil old lady. Just thinking about her now gives me chills. And next to her room was our main bathroom. If you turn left into the hall, you see my mum's room that she and I shared together. Next to her room was the door to the upstairs, and in the middle was the door to the basement. Well, no one was home, and I wasn't going to stay in that house alone, so I walked into the hall and sat on the phone bench. For those of you who don't know what that is, it looks like it's a wooden end table with a padded seat on it so you can talk on a corded phone. Anyway, earlier I saw my friend's dad's car parked across the street, so I knew my friend was home. I figured I would call him and hang out there and just wait for someone to come home. As I'm sitting there, I hear crackling coming from upstairs. It must have been one of my siblings, I thought. So I went to the bottom of the stairs and leaned in on one foot. Who's up there? The crackling stopped. Thinking they didn't hear me, I yelled again, this time calling out a few of my sister's names. Still nothing. So I sat back down on the bench and waited for them to come downstairs. It was quiet. Not a sound. Just then, to the right of me, it sounded like someone was pressing their body against the other side of the boarded up wall, listening. Then a muffled, quiet, evil giggle. It felt off. Really off. The crackling noise started back up again, now coming from the top of the stairs, followed by an ear-piercing ringing inside my head. Feeling uncomfortable, I picked up the phone, not taking my eyes off the staircase. I dialed my friend's number, and before I could even say hello, I could see it as it turned the corner of the staircase on the landing. It was huge. There were what looked like hundreds of eyes all over, and it was pulsating red to amber. The deafening sound of crackling was coming from it, with sparks flashing all over its form. It was slowly gliding down the stairs, coming towards me. I then heard more prominent laughter, almost like a cackle, coming from behind that wall. I ran. I dropped the phone and ran straight over to my friend's house until someone came home. Now, please keep in mind that we only lasted 6 months in this house, so these are all the events that I know of within that time frame and were confirmed to me by my siblings firsthand. A brief description of where this next event took place. It was on the 2nd floor. Standing at the top of the stairs, to the left, toward the back of the house, was my brother's room. Inside the door to the right was a short wall at the foot of his bed. alongside his bed was a window with some curtains. All of the head of our beds in our house always faced east. Then a desk next to his bed. Then an open space at the back corner near the closet. On the right of the stairs was all my sister's room. It was long and big and set up as follows. Closet to the far right, then lined from left to right. 4 single mattresses on the floor next to each other, with all heads to the east, then a window. My family were all avid readers. Well, that's pretty much all you could do back then. Late one night, about 2 a.m., my sisters were all lying on their beds, reading, when my brother burst open the door, white as a ghost, grabbing his neck, grasping for air frantically, telling them all to go downstairs. He briefly shared his experience, then ran out of the room. At that point, he ran downstairs to wake up our mother. I witnessed this because I shared a room with her. Actually, one of the beds upstairs was supposed to be mine, but I always complained about seeing a man hanging from a rope over the staircase landing. Plus, I had too many other experiences up there myself. The door swung open, slamming against the wall. He was standing there in a white t-shirt and PJ pants. There was no color in his face, and his neck looked like it was on fire. He said that he was just falling asleep when he felt a negative presence. Something caught his eye in the back corner of the room. It was a full-body apparition of an old man, and there was hate emanating from him. He started to sit up, but the man flew at him from across the room. He tried to describe it as quick, like 1 second he was there, and the next he was on top of him. So fast the curtains and everything else in the room was affected, like a big burst of wind. He grabbed his neck with both hands gripping tight and was choking the life out of him. He said he was nose to nose with this thing, and to this day he can't shake the evil image of his face. My sister and I both remember him saying at that time that the man in a guttural voice said,
"I want your body."
My mother put a cold rag on his neck and calmed him down. We all remember dark bruises in the shape of 2 hands that stayed on his neck and chest for over a week, and he never slept upstairs again. Through the years, he never wanted to talk about this until I told him I was writing our story. Now, on that night, all my sisters brought down their bedding, except one, my sister Rachel. She was headstrong and stubborn, still is. She was the cut the crap, it's all in your head type of person, until it happened to her. My elder sister Linda tried warning her that on numerous occasions she saw something dark lurking in the closet, and that one night she woke up to something pressing down on her while she was sleeping. But that didn't deter her. To her, we were all dramatic and crazy. I guess Rachel thought that it was kind of cool because she got that big room all to herself. Well, one day, she was upstairs taking a nap. She never slept without the fan on. The fan was located all the way across the room in front of that closet. The fan was round in the shape of a fat can. It was about 17 inches tall and 14 inches wide, with slats going around it about 2 inches apart, with big metal blades. My sister always slept with her arm extended out from under the pillow. She said that she was sound asleep, and all of a sudden she woke up to her finger being sliced by the metal blades of the fan, and she was in extreme pain. She pulled her hand out of the fan and ran downstairs to her mother. I remember that there was a lot of blood. My mother then wrapped her hand with gauze and papaya to eliminate scarring. We all went up to investigate. The fan was still there, but it was unplugged. We couldn't understand how it even got over to her. We had shag carpet, so it couldn't have vibrated. Plus, it would have had to travel over some articles of clothing that would have stopped it about 5 feet away from the bed. The plug was across the room where she said it was plugged into, and the cord wasn't long enough to reach her bed. You know, after having that happen to you, and the fact that your entire family is now sleeping together downstairs in the living room, and the fact that she saw the fan that cut her was unplugged, wouldn't that make you say uncle and join them downstairs in the living room? Nope, not her. She stayed sleeping up there for about a month, until she was forced to believe us. By this time, she had made the room her own. She took 2 of the mattresses and put them on top of each other, and put them both long ways under the window. She told me that she was in the beginning stages of a dream state, when she was fully awakened by pressure on her chest. It felt dark and evil. She couldn't move. All these things were racing through her head when she remembered what our minister told her when we were in council about this house. He told her to try to communicate with it, asking if it would follow her spirit guide into the light. So as she did, the pressure started to get worse. The more love she sent, the heavier it got. She said that it felt like a cement slab crushing her body and expelling all of her air. I asked her how she got out from under it, and she told me that she prayed and said some things our minister told us to say, and it lifted. After that, for the rest of the time we were there, she slept in the living room with us. Living there was hell. Every chance that old lady got, she tormented me. My brother and I saw through her screen door some dolls that looked like us, made out of our own trash with things stabbed into them, on her coffee table. She used to watch me through her screen door while I was playing. She would stand outside our kitchen door and stare at us cooking. My sister Melanie was in the bathroom, and we heard her shuffling on the other side. So being curious children, we put our ears to the wall and heard her breathing and swallow. How long was she listening, and why? Melanie, who made fun of me for not wanting to go upstairs or to the bathroom alone, was faced with her own frightening experience in the bathroom. When she was in the shower washing her face, she opened her eyes and saw a face looking back at her in the shower with her. So after that, I had to sit in the bathroom with her, and I felt very selfishly justified because not 2 weeks earlier, she thought it would be funny, so she took all of my art stuff and put them on the top of the stairs. So when I went up to get them, I was scared to death when I turned around to run downstairs and saw a man hanging by his neck over the landing. One day my mother gave me instructions to water the plants outside, and the water handle was outside our kitchen door. All I know is that my hand was on the handle, and she just appeared behind me, almost pressing against my back, with her hand over mine on the handle. I looked up at her in shock, and our eyes met. There was nothing but hate in those blue-grey piercing eyes. She screamed in my face, "No water," as she dug her long nails into my little hand, and her breath smelled of old cheese. I guess my sister Charity saw this from the screen door and agreed that she was fast on top of me. Charity burst out of the door and yelled at her to get away from me, or it would be the first time she beat up an old lady. The lady released my hand, leaving marks on my hand from her nails, and backed off of me. My sister then yelled at her to go home. So many things happened in that short span of 6 months that we were there. We found out that a man did hang himself on the stairway, and someone shot themselves in the closet upstairs. As for the old lady in the back, she was a very bad alcoholic who practiced the dark arts, and my brother and I think voodoo. She blackened out all of her windows to keep the energy pleased. This is what she told the neighbor. No one paid her any mind. All of her food and alcohol were delivered by the store, and she never had any visitors. Everyone thought she was just a crazy old lady, but we knew that there was so much more to her story. I often wondered who she was before this, and what made her that way. What happened to her that was so terrible it made her want to torment others, and even worse, innocent children? Was the evil man in my brother's room connected to her in some way? I guess I will never know. Our minister told us that the house could never be truly cleansed until she was gone. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. If you have a story to share, please send it to my email in the description below. This channel is mostly made up of stories sent in by viewers or people they know. Another way to support the channel is to sign up for my Patreon, where you can watch my videos ad-free. More perks will be added in the new year. Also, I will be adding new designs to the merch store, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you all for your continuous support. And remember,
Papa.